The episode begins with Casserole and his wife Anise. He's having an important conversation with her, needing her to remain calm and attentive. Anise becomes a little worried, thinking he might have bought something for himself without including her, but she assures him that she won't be upset over something like that. Casserole then hesitates for a moment and tells her that there's another girl in his life. This revelation shocks Anise, as she's never heard such words from him before. She tells him that she's a bit stunned because it's the first time she's hearing something like this from him. He explains that she misunderstood him, and she asks him to tell her more about this girl. He describes her as a beautiful girl from a very respectable family, emphasizing that she has a twin sister. Anise becomes intrigued, and she shares her concerns about him getting to know any other girl. Casserole chuckles and explains that their son Bess approves of this girl, as he sees her as a suitable match. Anise processes this and realizes that the girl Casserole was talking about is actually intended for their son, Bess. She apologizes for thinking he was going to cheat on her and admits that she thought he had bought something for himself again. At this moment, Bess enters the room and asks his father about his mother's response to his proposal. Casserole informs Bess that his mother needs some time to process the news, as she was genuinely shocked. Bess expects this situation to last at least a month before any progress is made. Later, the scene shifts to the Riddishvale province, where we meet Lady Ridish. Her assistant enters and informs her that Bess, the heir of the Mortlen family, is engaged. The engagement has been announced to the daughter of Margrave Huberic, causing Lady Ridish to be surprised by this news. She continues to resent the poor knight who joined a noble family like that. Lady Ridish then inquires about the girl and learns that she is the fourth daughter of Margrave Huberic, named Licorice. She's the twin sister of Petra, who was recently engaged to the Duke Cadlichic's grandson. There have been absurd rumors circulating about the engagement being a way to prove virtue after Petra's abduction. It's possible that the Huberic family intends to wait a few years for the incident's memory to fade before potentially breaking off the engagement. So, Ridish informed him that his assumption was incorrect. The true goal of the Huberic family is to make others feel comfortable with the fantasy of their unity. Her assistant comprehends her explanation, noting that the Huberic family's influence has grown significantly through the alliance with the Margrave Cadlichic family. When they united with a smaller family like Mortlen, they aimed to show that they weren't trying to strengthen their position through strategic marriages. Ridish continues to explain that the Margrave believes that Mortlen's estate has the potential to thrive and match the prosperity of their own province. When the land was granted to them 20 years ago, it was just barren ground. Over the last 3 years, they've reduced their wheat crops and started cultivating beans. They've used these beans as fertilizer to enrich the soil, resulting in improved wheat crops. Interestingly, this idea came from a 9-year-old Bess. The assistant is amazed by this revelation, finding it hard to believe that a child could come up with such an idea. However, Ridish reminds him of the negotiations when they visited for compensation after a road accident. It was Bess, not his father Casserole, who managed the negotiations and outperformed them. Surely, the old Huberic noticed the potential in this young boy and agreed to the alliance. The scene then shifts to the Mortlen province, where Bess is walking along the road. He arrives at the village of Laumult, carrying a box. He hands the box to a man there, thanking him for his assistance and then leaves. His friends ask him about the boxes, and Bess explains that they are the aid requested by Duke Cadlichic and Lord Squall. They've pledged their support to them during the engagement announcement. They open the box to find a tree inside, and Bess explains that it's a sapling of the black locust tree, also known as the false acacia tree. Then his friend asks him to eat the sapling. He inquires if Bess can make a pie out of the black locust tree. Bess replies that he doubts it, and even if he did make it, his friend wouldn't be able to eat it. However, he explains that these trees are easy to grow in poor soil and produce a lot of nectar. This means they can help them produce honey. Bess's friends become very excited and imagine what the honey would look like. Bess thinks to himself that honey is indispensable for making sweets in any time and place, as every place has its own confectionery history. His friend tells him that they'll cultivate these trees and gather the honey so they can enjoy sweets. Bess continues, saying that there are some problems regarding their cultivation here. His friend understands he's talking about the soil and water situation. He mentions that his grandfather taught him about the low rainfall in the Mortland province and how every tree they plant withers before growing fully. Bess reveals that they're going to change their mindset to provide water for the trees and change their way of thinking. There are sweets that can be made by changing our perspective. His friends are amazed by what he's saying. He tells them that instead of following the tradition of planting crops in fertile lands with abundant rainfall, they'll use a known technique from arid regions. They will build reservoirs to collect water, providing enough for the trees to thrive throughout the dry spring beginnings. That's why he chose this undeveloped land. Afterward, the scene shifts to the palace, where Cheats reads a letter that states the profits from textile sales amount to 8 silver coins after expenses. The wheat reached 14 silver and 5 copper coins, along with the emergency aids. With this, the total profit is 4 gold coins and 3/8. This concludes the report on last year's profits for the world. Crossel and Cheats are joyful that their efforts brought them profits all over the world. Cheats tells him that they were in a dire situation when they arrived here. Crossel tells him that they went through many ups and downs, and the young boy played an important role in it. He was their savior. Crossel thanks Bess for being with them and helping them throughout the journey. Cheats then talks to Bess about their decision to stay for a long time. He tells Bess that there are 2 more matters they should discuss, good news and bad news. He starts with the good news, which is that their cousin Jomelin has gathered over 40 settlers, most of whom were advanced settlers, and they no longer have a place to retreat to after their farms were looted by the highwaymen. Crossel says they have 40 settlers, so they need to accelerate the village building process. Bess asks about the newcomers, and Cheats informs him that the 5 people they appointed with the reward they received for rescuing Licorice are being trained by Glassage. Crossel mentions that if having more people means the land will prosper, there's nothing to complain about. As for the bad news, Cheats informs Bess that he heard Bistorai has set off on a new adventure. He received a report that Bistorai is heading to Lamalot with his friends. At this point, Casserole becomes very angry with his son, Bistorai, as he didn't ask for permission and didn't inform him about this adventure. He hits the table in frustration, and Cheats tells Bess that they need to leave now to find Bistorai. The scene then shifts to Bistorai and his friends, who are in a place resembling a large mountain. Bistorai uses his extraordinary abilities by extending his right hand, striking the rock with a powerful blow that causes the entire area to explode. As a result, his friends fall to the ground due to the force of Bistori's strike. His friends are astonished by the spectacle they witnessed, and Bistorai himself is happy, unable to believe he accomplished it. He had copied the magic of Citteradel, the thief. Bistorai approaches his friends, who encourage him for what he did. Considering it to be a remarkable feat, he tells them that this enchantment is more useful than he expected. Bistorai continues to laugh because he's happy that he did it all on his own. He starts moving in erratic motions, leading his friends to believe he might have lost his mind. Then, Bistorai uses his power once again to dig into the rocks. After some time, he successfully creates an opening in the rock, which will serve as the planting area. His friends are utterly amazed. Bistorai managed to do all this by himself, without any interference. Bistorai tells them that they will plant saplings in this area. When he looked at the weather, he saw that rain is expected soon. With this in mind, the water will collect in this place. As the trees grow, they will use this area as a reservoir to store rainwater. Bistorai continued to wander in his mind about using these enchantments to help him in cooking desserts. As he closed his eyes and imagined beautiful things, his friends approached him and told him to open his eyes now because a surprise awaited him. However, they said this in a mocking tone. When Bistorai opened his eyes, he found his father and Cheats standing before him. His father was extremely angry, and Bistorai trembled in fear and was drenched in sweat due to his intense fear. When Casserole asked Bistorai about what was in front of him, Bistorai said he thought it would be a water reservoir, but he went too far in destroying these rocks. At that moment, Casserole became extremely angry, his eyes filled with malice, and his hands seemed to release lightning due to his intense rage. He struck them all on their heads. On the other side, we see Her Highness talking to her minister, looking worried about something. The minister tells her not to worry about the Mortlin heir. However, she continues to ponder, as the description of the Mortlin heir matches Bistorai. She wishes she had a son now. The situation would have been easier if he proposed to her. What bothers her even more is that Kadalikic and Huberic joined forces without considering her feelings, meddling in the southern affairs despite living in the eastern side. Her Highness is very angry. She finished her tea in one gulp and asked for another pot of tea. When the minister saw her angry like this, he suggested that maybe she should propose to him herself. The princess pointed out that she is 10 years older than him, or maybe even 20 years. But she started considering this clever idea. She needs a way to bring him under her wing. We then move to the villagers governed by Bess, who are very happy about the irrigation canal Bess constructed. They also heard that Bess has built 3 more similar ponds in less than a month. The amazing part is the ingenious thinking of using tanks to collect water from the irrigation channels. Just then, someone approaches them, checking on the water channels. They assure him that they are excellent, and Bess is overjoyed to hear this. They have already planted all the saplings, and once they obtain honey from them, they'll be able to prepare sweets. Bess's friends mention that they could use the honey to prepare desserts. Suddenly, Bess's older sister, Josie, arrives carrying a letter. She seems urgent, and they suspect it might be from his charming fiancé. Being his elder sister, Josie takes on the responsibility and brings the letter to him herself. Bess becomes very embarrassed and takes the letter from her. And he begins to read the letter. His friends and sister approach him to know who sent the letter. He informs them that it's from Count Reitish, inviting him to a tea ceremony. She mentioned that she hoped to get his opinion about their new tea. Bess is surprised because the Count invited him personally. She must be planning something. Meanwhile, Cheats assigns this boy some tasks, telling him that once these tasks are completed, they'll figure out how to manage the grain reserves. The boy becomes annoyed with all these tasks, thinking that working in the countryside would be easy. Cheats tells him that he understands his feelings but points out that it was that mischievous little brat, referring to Bess, who caused all this work. Suddenly, Bess overhears this and responds, saying, "Misunderstanding, Shins. Everything happening in Mortlin falls under my father's feudal rule. In other words, my father is the cause of your excessive work." Cheats asks for clarification on who bypassed that rule and dug the reservoir. Bess, as the next feudal lord, admits that he acted on behalf of his father. Cheats expresses astonishment and disbelief at how Bess always manages to escape situations cleverly. Cheats then scolds the working boy, telling him if he has complaints, he should address his grievances to his father. Later, Cheats asks Bess about his father's whereabouts. Cheats informs Bess that his father is out, working in the royal capital, and hasn't returned yet. Bess reveals that Count Reitish invited him to a tea ceremony, and Cheats is also surprised that she invited him personally. He suggests she must be planning something and considers discussing it with his father. Suddenly, Bess's father arrives and tells him that he knows about it. He overheard it from someone else in the capital, not from Count Reitish. Bess asks him what he wants. Bess's father hints that he heard about his negotiations regarding the road accident compensation and asks if she will seek revenge for how he handled it. Bess's father tells him that he can talk about that later, but for now, he has an important guest with him. Bess is surprised to find out that it's Miss Lycoris, his fiancée, standing beside his father. Bess is overjoyed, and she is also very pleased to meet him again. Cheats teases Bess about being lucky to have his fiancée visit him at home. Bess's father clarifies that it's not just a visit, Lycoris will be staying with them for the time being. The episode ends on a happy note, and the audience is encouraged to look forward to upcoming episodes. They are reminded to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell for updates.